Afternoon. Yesterday we began the story of Othello. We act by act summary of the play. An act by act summary of the play. You are supposed to have a soft copy of the play so that we could read after each act. How many of you have the soft copy? Because if you have your phone now, you access the soft copy. Do you have it? And there's a copy here. I have a copy here. So we should begin reading the play today. I wanted to do the summary and then we read. But let's see if we have up to 2 or 3 texts in the class, we should be able to read. Act 1, Scene 1. Note that this play was first performed in 1604. Othello was first performed in 1604. Act 1, Scene 1. This scene takes place in a street in Venice. The scene takes place in a street in Venice. Roderigo and Iago are seen conversing. Roderigo and Iago are seen conversing. The conversation reveals the hate that both Roderigo and Iago have for Othello. The conversation reveals the hatred that both Roderigo and Iago have for Othello. Roderigo hates Othello because Othello marries Desdemona, whom he wanted to marry. Iago hates Othello because Othello did not give him the position of lieutenant. Instead, he gave it to Cassio. Iago sees Cassio as an inferior soldier compared to himself. Reginald. So this is seen in the statement. A fellow almost damned in a fair wife that never set a squadron in the field. Nor the division of battle, no. He says that Cassio only knows mere prattle without practice. Says mere prattle without practice is all his soldiership, meaning that Cassio is not a good soldier. is reported that Iago is Othello's ancient, Ancient, a junior officer in the army. Iago tells Roderigo that serving Othello does not mean that he loves him. He says, in following him, I follow but myself. In following him, I follow but myself. Heaven is my judge, not for love and duty, but seeming so for my peculiar end. It's not out of love and dedication to duty that he serves Othello, but for his own purpose, or his own selfish purpose, because he has to pretend to follow him, to serve him, for that purpose to come about. Then they both decide to, of course, he cannot do anything about it because the civil service has its own rule. All right? That's why he said it is the curse of service. Preferment goes by letter and affection. People are appointed to positions based on who needs their services. Preferment goes by letter and affection. Appointment is done based on recommendation by a higher person or who you know, who loves you in the service. So that's why Iago cannot do anything about being appointed an ancient instead of what? Lieutenant. Then they decide to, when they are passing by Brabantio's house, they decide to tell Brabantio about what, they decide to tell Brabantio that Desdemona had married Othello secretly, just to spoil things for Othello. So they raise a shout in that evening, that night, and it brings Brabantio out of the house. They tell him, look to your house, your daughter and your bags. Look to your house, your daughter and your bags. That is an example of anticlimax or bathos. That's an example of anticlimax or bathos. Look to your house, your daughter, and your bags. It's an example of what? Bathos or anticlimax in the play. Because the most valuable object comes first, which is house, then daughter, and then bags. That's anticlimax. In this period, women were considered as properties. So there's little wonder why the house comes first, as more important, then after a daughter, and then back. Then, when Brabantio comes out and identifies Roderigo, Brabantio tells Roderigo that he has told him many times that he cannot marry his daughter, Desdemona. Okay? It is seen in the expression, I have charged thee not to hunt about my doors. In honest plainness, thou hast heard me say, my daughter is not for thee. Right? And I said yesterday that parental consent was very important for any marriage to take place. And no matter how the daughter loved the man, if the father does not give consent, the marriage cannot go on. And he cited an example in A Midsummer Night's Dream, where he Jews complains to the Duke. Of how the daughter refused to marry the man that he wants her to marry. So Roderigo and Othello, out of jealousy, informed Brabantio that his daughter Desdemona had secretly married Othello. Okay? They do it in these words. I am one, sir, that comes to tell you your daughter and the Moor are now making the beast and two backs. Now making the beast with two backs. So you see the language that they use, that the union will produce beasts. Okay? Another thing that you have to pay attention when you are reading this play is the use of sexual innuendos in the language. The sexual insinuation in the language of the play. You pay attention to that. So when innuendos, right? When insinuation, suggestion, hints, that's what I mean by innuendo. So when Brabantio finally finds out that Desdemona is not at home, he decides to look for Othello. He organizes a small army to arrest Othello for stealing Desdemona. Iago runs away at this point because he does not want to be seen publicly as the one who has caused the problem for his master. This is going to be his attitude throughout in the play. He's going to be sneaky and malicious, mischievous in his actions. So Roderigo is the one that goes with Brabantio to seek out Othello, while Iago runs back to Othello and pretends to be a loyal servant. Okay? And Rodrigo is doing this, hoping that maybe it might help Brabantio to consider his case in seeking to marry Desdemona. So, while leaving the scene of trouble, Iago tells Roderigo, though I hate him as I do hell pains, yet for necessity of present life must show out a flag and sign of love, which is indeed but sign. As he's referring to Othello, that he hates Othello, but he wants to show, wants to pretend that he loves him for the present time, so that he can achieve his purpose. Brabantio is mad when he discovers that his daughter is gone. He asks Roderigo to lead him to where Othello and the daughter are. That ends scene 1. Scene 2. Scene 2 takes place in Venice in another street. Scene 2 takes place Act 1, Scene 2 takes place in Venice in another street. At 1, Scene 2 takes place in Venice in another street. Iago and Othello are holding a conversation. During this conversation, Othello confides in Iago the love that he has for Desdemona. During this conversation, Othello confides in Iago the love he has for Desdemona, his very enemy. Then Cassio arrives to inform Othello that the Duke desires to see him immediately at the Senate. Please follow these things scene by scene. Cassio arrives to inform Othello that the Duke desires to see Othello immediately at the Senate. And he, Duke, requires your post-haste appearance at the Senate. So, from this point, we begin to learn about the coming war. And which war is that? The war with the Turks. The war that is going to happen at Cyprus. After Othello has gone to prepare to go to the Senate, Iago informs Cassio that Othello has been married. Iago informs Cassio that Othello has been married to Desdemona. Othello returns, but just then Brabantio and his irate party arrives. Brabantio arrives with the army to arrest Othello. He calls Othello a thief. And the two parties are ready to fight. Brabantio accuses Othello of stealing his daughter, as well as charming her through diabolic means. He says, I therefore apprehend and do attach thee for an abuser of the world, a practicer of arts inhabited and out of warrant. This is the accusation that Brabantio presses on Othello. Othello wants to respond to Brabantio's accusation in a formal setting. So he asked him, where can I go to answer this charge that you laid on me? Brabantio says that Othello should be arrested and put in prison until when it is necessary for him to answer the accusation. Then Othello appeals to the fact that the Duke has just sent for him. And that if he is arrested, how is he going to answer the Duke's summon at the Senate? So this is how Brabantio agrees that Othello should be taken to the Senate, because he believed that the Duke, being his brother, will also listen to his case about what Othello has done with his daughter. Scene 3. Act 1, Scene 3. Act 1, Scene 3. This scene is set in a council chamber where the Duke and the other senators sit at a table. Act 1, Scene 3 is set in a council chamber. The senators are in a meeting, in a war council. They are discussing and debating the war intelligence on Cyprus. They are discussing and debating the war intelligence on Cyprus. Actually, the Turks pretend to be heading to Rhodes. To Rhodes. And sometimes they pretend to be heading to Cyprus. So finally, it is confirmed that they're actually heading to Cyprus. It's an intelligence issue, just to confuse the enemy, to confuse the Venice politicians or soldiers. So a seller finally comes to confirm the report in these words: the Turkish preparation makes for Rhodes. So was I report here to state by Signor Angelo. That is the false intelligence. All right? This statement is made by Othello to the Senate. False intelligence or tricky military strategy from the text, whereas the real target is Cyprus. So it is the messenger that comes with the real intelligence. It is messenger that comes with the real intelligence. Seller reports the false intelligence. And this is what messenger has to say. This is what messenger has to say. The Ottomites, revered and gracious, steering with due course towards the Isle of Rhodes, have there enjoined them with an offer after fleet. The Ottomites, so it is finally confirmed by messenger. When we read the play, you see the real statement that they are heading for Cyprus. Then the Duke asked first senator to write to Marcus Lucicus. Marcus Lucicus. I'm being very detailed. As first senator, the Duke asked first senator to write to Marcus Lucicus. At this point, Brabantio enters. He complains to the Duke about Othello's action. Brabantio enters and complains to the Duke about Othello's action. He calls him a mountebank. Mountebank. Calls him a mountebank. You might come across this word in most of Shakespeare's works. Mountebank. It means a person who deceives others, especially out of their money. Mountebank. A person who deceives others, tries to trick them out of their money. A charlatan. A charlatan. A charlatan. A charlatan. Othello comes in to answer the charges, saying he has married Desdemona and did not charm her. He only charmed her with his adventurous stories. The only charm that Othello used on Desdemona is the story about his experiences in the battlefield in strange lands. His adventurous stories did not use charm, but Desdemona fell in love with him and married him willingly. So he asked that Desdemona should be brought to testify to what he has said. Then Desdemona is sent for. Desdemona arrives. She confirms what Othello has said. And this pacifies Brabantio's anger. Right? Pacifies Brabantio's anger. It calms him down. Right? It calms him down. And because of that, because I already promised that if the daughter confirms Othello's story, he will hand over the daughter to Othello. That's exactly what he does. And the Duke advises the couple. And so Iago and Roderigo are defeated, part 1. Okay? Are defeated, part 1. Then the Senate turns to the war matter at hand. All right? The Senate proceeds to the business of state, the war at Cyprus. As the Duke tells the Senate that the Turk, with a most mighty preparation, makes for Cyprus. Othello is asked to leave for Cyprus because he knows the terrain very well. He knows the place very well. Othello will leave for Cyprus that night, while Iago will bring Desdemona later. He entrusts Desdemona in the hands of Iago, whom he calls honest at this point. He calls him honest Iago, which is irony. We have rhyme in the following expression. If virtue no delighted beauty lack, your son-in-law is far more fair than black. That expression is not only, that expression is an epigram. It's a short, witty saying. If virtue no delighted beauty lack, your son-in-law is far more fair than black. Duke says this to Brabantio. This statement is made to Duke by Brabantio. Irony is seen, dramatic irony is seen when Othello calls Iago honest Iago, because dramatic irony refers to a dramatic technique where the audience knows more than the actors of the course of events in a story. Okay? So the audience knows that Iago hates and deceives Othello, but Othello is here calling him honest Iago. That's irony. So note the use of irony in the play. Othello and Desdemona exit while Iago and Dorigo bemoan their misery and plot their evil. For instance, Rodrigo wants to drown himself about the disappointment because Brabantio has handed over Desdemona to Othello, finally, as a wife. So Iago tells Rodrigo not to give up, but that I should put money in his purse. Put money in thy purse and follow the wars. That means he should come to Cyprus, but should bring a lot of money, that he will ensure that Desdemona is delivered to him, which is deceitful because it cannot happen. So that expression, put money in thy purse, follow the words. If you read that speech, when we read that speech, you see that it is a refrain. It is what? A refrain. Put money in thy purse. It is strategically repeated throughout the speech. The refrain. Irony is also seen in the statement of Iago to Rodrigo. Thou art sure of me, go make money. That's irony, because he knows that he's also deceiving Rodrigo. Rodrigo is willing to sell all his land and carry the money to Cyprus to win the hand of Desdemona. Willing to sell all his land. And when Rodrigo leaves, he says, thus do I ever make my fool my purse. So that's what Iago says about Rodrigo, meaning that he's playing him. Iago reveals Othello's character flaw in this statement. The Moor is of a free and open nature. As Othello has a good heart, accepts everybody, which is dangerous. The Moor is of a free and open nature, that thinks men honest, that but seem to be so. That's why I said that Othello lacks what? Discernment. Alright? He simply takes people as they come and go. He thinks that people are honest even when they are pretending to be honest. He doesn't put them to test. That's Othello's character flaw. And Iago wants to exploit that character flaw in Othello. to lead to Othello's destruction, to bring about Othello's destruction. That is the end of Act 1. Act 2, Scene 1. Act 2, Scene 1. Act 2, Scene 1 is set in a seaport town in Cyprus. Act 2, Scene 1 is set in a seaport town in Cyprus. Act 2, Scene 1 is set in a seaport town in Cyprus. Right? A seaport town, Cyprus. In Cyprus. Seaport town in Cyprus. It is an open place near a quay. A quay is a stone or metal platform lying alongside or projecting into water for loading and unloading ships. Quay. Read the quay, you come across the word quay. All right? A stone or metal platform lying alongside or projecting into water for loading and unloading ships. We are studying the play now. You have to take down your notes. You have to take down notes. A quay is a stone or metal platform lying alongside water or projecting into water for loading and unloading ships. We are introduced to the character Montano. Who is Montano? Okay, it is pronounced key. Pronounced key. Key, not quick. It's pronounced key. It's pronounced key. All right. We are introduced to the character of Montano. Who is Montano? Montano is the governor of Cyprus until Othello arrives. He is talking with a gentleman. What they are discussing is the sea and the weather. Is the weather good or bad? Is it good or bad weather? The weather is bad. We have personification in the expression, methinks the wind had spoke aloud at hand. Methinks the wind had spoke aloud at hand. That is personification, because the wind is given the character of a human being. Methinks the wind had spoke aloud at hand. That's an example of personification. Methinks the wind had spoke aloud at hand. So the wind is an inanimate thing, but speaking is a human act, so that makes it personification. Then, third gentleman reports on the destruction of the Turkish ships by the storm. The Turkish ships have been destroyed by the storm. The Turkish warships have been destroyed by the storm. He also reports on the arrival of Cassio to Cyprus. There is concern about the safety of Othello because of the storm that has destroyed the Turkish ships. Third gentleman reports on the destruction of the Turkish ships, the arrival of Cassio to Cyprus, and the concern about Othello's safety at sea. As I said yesterday, the destruction of the Turkish fleet is an instance of historical allusion because it alludes to the destruction of the Spanish Armada. The Spanish Armada sent to England by Philip II of Spain, which was destroyed by the storm, just as happens now in this place, during Elizabethan's reign. So during Queen Elizabeth's reign. Cassio also reports to Montano that Othello is married. Cassio also reports to Montano that Othello is married. Second gentleman reports the arrival of Iago with Desdemona and Emilia. Second gentleman reports that Iago has arrived Cyprus with Desdemona and Emilia. Remember that Othello had asked that Desdemona should stay with Emilia, who is Iago's wife. Emilia is Iago's wife. Emilia is Iago's wife. Okay? So they have also arrived at the island. Desdemona asks Cassio of Othello, who is yet to arrive. So we can say that there is a brief suspense here in this play, because suspense is an important aspect of drama or any work of literature. There's a brief suspense. Sit up. In our anxiety being raised about the safety of Othello, we have suspense. We have suspense in the text. So you take note of it. It's full of wit and fun. Full of wit and fun. Then Othello arrives with attendants. He calls Desdemona my soul's joy. He calls Desdemona my soul's joy. That's an example of metaphor. Metaphor. My soul's joy. He calls Desdemona my soul's joy. That's an example of metaphor. Then Othello announces the end of the war. Othello announces the end of the war, which they did not have to fight. Othello announces the end of the war, which they did not have to fight. He says, news, Act 2, Scene 2. Act 2, Scene 2. This scene takes place in a street in Cyprus. This scene takes place in a street in Cyprus. It is a very short scene. It's a very short scene in which the herald proclaims a feast and a holiday following the destruction of the Turkish fleet by the storm. The herald proclaimed a feast and a holiday following the destruction of the Turkish fleet by the storm. Act 2, Scene 3. Act 2, Scene 3. Act 2, Scene 3. This scene takes place in the castle with Othello, Cassio, and Desdemona, as well as Iago, as major characters. Othello instructs Cassio to look after the castle while he retires with Desdemona. But Iago persuades Cassio not to go to do the wash duty first, that they should not go and do the wash duty first. Instead, they should take a drink. As I said yesterday, Iago knows that Cassio is not good with wine. But he wants Cassio to get drunk so that he can put Cassio in an embarrassing situation. So Cassio tells him that he has already taken the 1 cup of wine that he is used to, that he can manage. But Othello persuades him to take more. He tells him, "Not tonight, good Iago. I have very poor and unhappy brains for drinking." He's not good with wine. He knows his weakness. But Iago wants him to drink so that he can embarrass himself and lose his position. Iago says to himself, "If I can fasten but 1 cup upon him with that which he had drunk tonight, he will be as full of quarrel and offense." Cassio cannot control himself when he's drunk. And that's why Iago wants him to be drunk, so that he can disgrace himself. So at the end, they drink and sing. And Cassio is drunk and starts misspeaking and misbehaving. Cassio is seen pursuing Roderigo, whom Iago had earlier sent after Cassio in order to start a quarrel. When Cassio leaves to do his watch duty, Iago, knowing that Cassio is drunk, sends Roderigo after him to go and cause problem. And that is exactly what happens, because we see Cassio pursuing Roderigo back to where the others are and beating him in the process. And when Montano intervenes, Cassio also beats up Montano, who is the governor, right? The immediate past governor of Cyprus. So when this fight breaks out, while Cassio is fighting and wounding Montano, Iago asks Roderigo to go outside and shout, "Mutiny, mutiny," as there's a problem. And then they ring the alarm bell in Cyprus. Sit up. And then they ring the alarm bell in Cyprus. And then Othello, it wakes up everybody, and Othello comes out. At this point, Cassio's eyes are clear. The wine departs. The spirit of wine departs from him, and he comes back to his senses. But he cannot remember all that happened. So Iago tells the story against him. And Othello is disappointed with what Cassio has done and suspends him from duty. He says, "Cassio, I love thee, but never more be officer of mine. Cassio, I love thee, but never more be officer of mine. Cassio, I love thee, but never more be officer of mine." Then Cassio decries his laws of reputation. He says, "Reputation, reputation, reputation. Oh, I have lost my reputation. At this point, Iago advises Cassio to beg Desdemona to plead with Othello to restore him. Unknown to Cassio, Iago wants to use the time that Cassio will be with Desdemona to beg him to suggest to Othello that Cassio and Desdemona are having an affair. At this point, Roderigo is impatient and angry because so far he has spent all his money on Iago without any result. And Iago answers him in a rhetorical question. How poor are they that have not patience? What wound ever did heal but by degrees? How poor are they that have not patience? What wound did ever heal but by degrees? And then advises him that he should be patient, that he has more strategies, more schemes. That brings Act 2 to an end. Act 3, Scene 1. Act 3, Scene 1. Out of the 5 acts. Act 3, Scene 1. This scene takes place in Cyprus, before the castle. The castle is where Othello stays, in the government palace. This scene takes place in Cyprus, before the castle. Act 3, Scene 1 takes place in Cyprus, before the castle. This scene is a comic relief. This scene is a comic relief. This scene is a comic relief. Comic relief is a humorous scene in tragedy meant to relieve tension. We see Cassio asking some musicians to play for him something that's brief and bid good moral general, that he will pay them for their services. Then we have a humorous conversation between clown and musician. So the presence of the clown suggests that this scene is comic relief, constitutes comic relief. The presence of clown. The clown is a character that makes the audience laugh. So it's a stock character. We know his duty is to make, even from his appearance, is to make the audience laugh. So the conversation between the clown and musician is humorous. It's funny. For instance, it says, "Why, masters, have your instruments been in Naples, that they speak in the nose thus?" That means that the instruments are not making harmonious sounds. They speak in the nose. That the instruments speak in the nose. It's a very sarcastic expression. So clown is satirizing the instruments of the musicians, and by extension satirizing their song as not being melodious enough. Note also that this conversation is witty and full of puns. The conversation is witty and full of puns. We also have sarcasm in the expression, "And the general so likes your music that he desires you of all loves to make no more noise with it." Meaning that it is not music, it is noise that they are making, as far as Othello is concerned. This is what clown says to first musician. It's a sarcastic statement. He says, "The general so likes your music that it desires you of all loves to make no more noise with it. That means I really like the so clown asked first musician that they can only play music that cannot be heard. They can only be allowed to continue to play if they can play music that cannot be heard. If their music cannot be heard. Otherwise, they should pack up their instruments and leave. Then the musicians leave. Cassio asked Clown to inform Emilia that he wants to talk to her. Then Iago enters. Cassio informs Iago that he had already sent in a request to Emilia to plead with Desdemona for her. At this point, Cassio is ignorant about Iago's true character. At this point, Cassio is ignorant about Iago's true character. That's why he calls him honest in this statement. He said, I never knew a Florentine more kind and honest, referring to Iago. Then Emilia appears and reassures Cassio that Desdemona is already speaking with Othello on his behalf. Emilia appears to reassure Cassio that Desdemona is already speaking with Othello on his behalf. Cassio asks to see Desdemona personally, and Emilia grants the request. Cassio asks to see Desdemona personally, and Emilia grants the request. That ends scene 1, Act 3, scene 2. Act 3, scene 2. This scene takes place in a room in the castle. This scene takes place in a room in the castle. This scene takes place in a room in the castle. It is a very short scene in which Othello gives letters to Iago to dispatch through the pilot to Venice to be sent to the Senate. It's a very short scene in which Othello gives letters to Iago to dispatch through the pilot to Venice for the Senate. The letter goes to the Senate. The pilot will take it to Venice to give to the senators. The letters are handed over to Iago to deliver to the pilot to take to Venice. Then Othello goes with gentlemen to examine the newly built fortifications. Then Othello goes with gentlemen to examine the newly built fortifications. Scene 3, Act 3, Scene 3. This scene takes place in the garden of the castle. Sit up. Stand up. Stand up. This scene takes place in the garden of the castle, where Desdemona, Emilia, and Cassio are seen conversing. Your standing is not punishment. When you are sure you won't sleep again, you can sit down. This scene takes place in the garden of the castle, where Desdemona, Emilia, and Cassio are seen conversing. Both Emilia and Desdemona assure Cassio that they will do everything possible to help him regain his lost position. Othello enters as Cassio leaves. Othello enters as Cassio leaves. Iago begins to insinuate that something is off with the way Cassio relates with Desdemona. He also insinuates that something is off with the way Cassio walks away guiltily. That Cassio walks away guiltily, as if he's afraid of something. Desdemona continues to plead with Othello. Desdemona continues to plead with Othello on Cassio's behalf. Desdemona and Emilia leave briefly before
Desdemona and Emilia live briefly, during which Iago continues to poison Othello's mind, eventually succeeding in making him jealous. He eventually succeeds in making him jealous. By this time, Desdemona and Emilia return to invite Othello for a public dinner. Othello's mind had already been infected. So he begins to act strangely towards Desdemona. And pretends to have headache when asked what is wrong with him. He pretends to have headache. He feigns headache. Desdemona tries to care for Othello by placing the handkerchief in the place called napkin on Othello's forehead to pacify the headache. Othello pushes the handkerchief away, and it falls on the ground unknown to Desdemona. Emilia picks up the handkerchief and gives it to Othello, who has always asked him to steal the handkerchief for him. But Emilia does not know what Othello wants to do with this handkerchief. She just innocently gives it to him as a wife would help the husband. Then Iago continues to work on Othello's mind, poisoning it further. He even tells Othello about the kerchief. It gets to a point where both Othello and Iago kneel down, vow to work together to expose and deal with Cassio and Desdemona. It is this kerchief that really makes Othello believe, because Iago lies that the kerchief was found at Cassio's chamber, whereas he was the one who places it there. Scene 4. Our 3 scene 4. This scene takes place before the castle. This scene takes place before the castle. It is another comic relief scene. In the play. That is because we have the presence of the clown. In this scene, we also have the use of wit and puns. Desdemona notices that she had lost the kerchief, but Emilia refuses to say that she knows its whereabouts. So Emilia contributes to the tragedy of the play by refusing to talk about the kerchief. She speaks to Emilia about jealousy, because she has noticed that Othello has begun acting strangely. Othello enters and asks Desdemona of the kerchief. Desdemona cannot produce the kerchief. She says she has misplaced it. The kerchief now suddenly becomes very important to Othello, and he begins to tell Desdemona of its magical powers and all of that, and who gave it to him and for what purpose, and why it should never be lost. So the handkerchief soon becomes a source of dispute or conflict between Desdemona and Othello. At this point, Iago is seen urging Cassio to go and importune Desdemona for his job. He knows that this is the right moment for him to force Cassio to go and ask Desdemona to keep on asking Othello for the job, knowing that all is no more well among the two, among the husband and wife. Cassio does this, but Desdemona declares to him that Othello has changed. He says, "My lord is not my lord. My lord is not my lord." Iago pretends as if he does not know what he has done. Then Bianca visits Cassio and complains that Cassio has not visited her for over a week. The fact that this play has gone on for a week now shows that Shakespeare does not keep to the unity of time in the play. All right? Good. And we said that at the introductory when we were introducing Renaissance drama. Cassio gives Bianca Othello's sketchy. Bianca Othello's sketchy. Bianca is suspicious of this sketchy and thinks that it's a love gift from another woman to Cassio. Cassio says that he found the kerchief in his apartment and does not know who owns it. He wants to copy it, wants to make a copy of it because he likes it. He asks Bianca to leave as he does not want Othello to see him with a woman. That brings Act 3 to an end. Act 4, Scene 1. Act 4, Scene 1. Act 4, Scene 1. Act 4, Scene 1 takes place before the castle in Cyprus. Takes place before the castle in Cyprus. Act 4, Scene 1 takes place before the castle in Cyprus. Stand up. Othello and Iago are having a conversation, still on the Cassio-Desdemona affair. Othello keeps on working to disintegrate Othello. Iago keeps on working to disintegrate Othello's mind. Iago keeps working to disintegrate Othello's mind. He gets to a point where Othello faints, falls into a trance, and Iago boasts, "Work on, my medicine, work." The medicine here is jealousy, which has infected Othello with. Cassio enters and Iago informs him that Othello has epilepsy. Cassio enters and Iago informs him that Othello has epilepsy. As Othello comes round, Iago asks Cassio to withdraw, that he will speak with Cassio when Othello is gone. As Othello comes round, that's when he is reviving. That's what I mean by coming round. Iago asks Cassio to do what? To withdraw, that he will speak with him when Othello is gone. He has a reason for this. He has a reason for this. He tells Othello to hide himself, that he would confess, to have a conversation with Cassio to reveal that he is cheating with Desdemona, when actually he wants to talk about Bianca and not Desdemona. But while talking about Bianca, whatever Cassio says, Othello will think that he's talking about Desdemona. So you could see this kind of character that Iago is. Thus, while Cassio talks about Bianca to Iago, Othello, who is far away, thinks that he's talking about his love affair with Desdemona. Cassio leaves and Othello returns. He is now prepared to murder Cassio and Desdemona. He wants to poison Desdemona, but Iago suggests that he should strangle her in bed, even the bed she had contaminated. A trumpet announces the arrival of Lodovico from Venice. A trumpet announces the arrival of Lodovico Desdemona's cousin from Cyprus. Lodovico has a discussion with Othello and delivers letters to him from the Duke. All right? Desdemona reports to her cousin that Othello and Cassio are not on good terms, that they have a problem. The letter that Lodovico has brought from the Duke commands Othello to return to Venice. They have another assignment for him in Mauritania, while Cassio takes his place in Cyprus. Going by the circumstances in the play now, Othello is not happy that Cassio is taking his place. So it makes him angry the more. All right? Lodovico gives this as the reason for Othello's strange behavior. Maybe because he has been asked to return to Venice. That's why he's not happy. Then Othello slaps Desdemona in the presence of Lodovico. Othello slaps Desdemona in the presence of Lodovico. What you need to understand is that the individual first loses it psychologically before losing it physically. So the battle is first of all in the mind. And all this action, once Othello succeeded in infecting his mind is not pure again, so all his actions will be evil, like slapping his wife. And once he starts losing it then, he's falling from the mind first, before his physical tragedy. That's what you need to know. So Othello is a deeply psychological play. So all these actions show that Othello has lost it in the mind and is soon going to lose it physically. My lord, this would not be believed in Venice. This statement is made by Lodovico after witnessing Othello slapping Desdemona. The code of knighthood requires the knight to use his powers to defend the weak, and not to use his powers to oppress the weak. As a knight, the weak is the woman, your woman. You are supposed to defend your woman and not to oppress her. So, Othello is already, by slapping his wife, is already abusing or has already violated the code of knighthood, the code of being a soldier. You don't use your power against the defenseless. Use your power to defend them. Use your power to fight those who are at the same level of power with you. So Othello has lost on that count. Then Othello goes on to mock Desdemona, implying that she is a whore. It should be noted that Othello's fall is first psychological, then moral, before his physical or real fall. Psychological fall, moral fall, and then the physical fall. And this is remarked in Lodovico's statement. Is this the noble Moor whom our full Senate call all in all sufficient? That's a rhetorical question. That means he's no more the Othello that they used to meet. He has changed, he has fallen. Is this the Moor whom our full Senate call all in all sufficient? He has lost his character. That's a rhetorical question. The question meant to elicit, a question asked for its effect and not to elicit a response. A question asked for its effect and not to elicit a response. Scene 2. This scene takes place in a room in the castle. Takes place in a room in the castle where Othello is questioning Emilia about Desdemona's faithfulness. Emilia informs Othello that she has no evidence that Desdemona is unfaithful, and that she can assure him that Desdemona is faithful to him. I thus, my lord, to wager she is honest. Othello asked Emilia to call Desdemona, He also questions her and demeans her dignity. He demeans Desdemona's dignity. When Othello leaves, Iago, Emilia, and Desdemona discuss Othello's suspicion. Iago feigns ignorance, so he doesn't know what is going on. When trumpet sounds for supper, Desdemona and Emilia leave, and Roderigo enters. Roderigo accuses Iago of deceiving him and threatens to go to Desdemona herself to recover his money and jewelry, not knowing that all the money that Iago has received from him, he has not given any to Desdemona. All the money and jewelry, he has taken it for himself. He has robbed Roderigo. So Roderigo threatens to go and report himself to Desdemona so that at least he can get back his money and jewelry. Iago informs Roderigo of Othello's leaving for Mauritania. Leaving for Mauritania? And Cassio taking his place. And Cassio taking his place. And Cassio taking his place. Iago plans to make Cassio unfit for the position of, for his new position by either killing him or maiming him. But he wants Roderigo to do the dirty job. Doesn't want to do himself. He assigned Roderigo to kill Cassio, because he makes him believe that the death of Cassio will benefit him. Scene 3. Act 4, Scene 3. This scene takes place in another room in the castle. Another room in the castle. This scene takes place in another room in the castle. Othello converses bravely with Lodovico, then asks Desdemona to wait for him in the bedroom and to dismiss Emilia. This is suspicious because Othello has already made up his mind to kill Desdemona. Othello has already made up his mind to kill Desdemona. So there is a general feeling of foreboding shared between Emilia and Desdemona. Desdemona knows that she's about to die. From when we read the play, you will see from the conversation that she knows that she's about to die. And then they go on to discuss how men maltreat their wives and how some wives maltreat their men. Okay. Let us end the class there for today. When we come back, we'll look at the summary of Act 5 and then we'll start reading the play. Please, there's no excuse. Next time we are meeting, bring your play to the class.